Good morning and welcome. I'm Alex Vatanka. I'm a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C. And I'm pleased to welcome you to today's panel with the title Gulf States, Central Asia, and the South Caucasus is an unprecedented push for economic integration underway. In the last few years, we've seen a new political and economic set of ties develop between the countries of Central Asia and the South Caucasus with the Gulf states. This has included the most recent July summit between the 5 Central Asian states and the 6 countries of the Gulf Cooperation Council, where a joint action plan for strategic dialogue and cooperation between them was approved, covering the period from 2023 to 2027. Expansion in economic ties is also evident elsewhere, including Gulf companies such as the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company investing in Azerbaijan's gas sector, or Gulf companies investing in such areas as solar and wind energy to agricultural projects across Central Asia and the South Caucasus. MEI is delighted to welcome our 4 speakers for a conversation around these issues. In the interest of time, I will introduce them by name and affiliation only, and in the order they'll speak today, but you can see their full bios on the pages of the Middle East Institute anytime you wish. First, we have Akbota Jolazbekova, who is the Dean of Faculty of International Relations at the Eurasian National University in Astana, Kazakhstan. Next, we have Mohammed Al-Sulami, who is the head of Rasana International Institute for Iranian Studies in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Then we have Fariz Ismailzadeh, Vice Rector at ADA University in Baku, Azerbaijan. Last but not least, we have Cengiz Khaladze, who is a Senior Fellow at European Center for International Political Economy, and is joining us today from Tbilisi, Georgia. For the audience, I encourage everyone to submit your questions. Please use Zoom's Q&A feature. I'll be looking at all of your questions and will factor in as many as those possible into the conversation. With this text now read out loud by me, let's start the conversation that we're all looking forward to. I will start with you, Akbota. Please set the stage for us. We've seen in recent years, Russia, China, maybe even the United States showing a greater interest in the Central Asian countries. And now we see this interest expand to the Gulf countries. Start us off. What is driving this trend? And perhaps you can use Kazakhstan as the showcase to explain what is happening between these two regions. Akbota, floor is yours. Go ahead.
First of all, Alex, thank you for organizing this amazing event. We are honored. I'm honored personally. And let me tell you that I'm not a dean of the faculty. Life changes fast in this part of the world. I'm a professor of the same faculty. When we say that some doors are closing, some doors are opening. So, of course, this uncertain future for the Black Sea Grain Initiative, the shortage of energy is forcing not only the entire world, but Kazakhstan and Central Asians to look for the new doors and new initiatives. By talking about the cooperation of the Gulf states with the Central Asian republics, we do not say that that was not on the agenda, but let us not forget that all the 5 Central Asians got their sovereignty 30 years back, and it took some time to not only to form a foreign policy concept, but to form the priorities. And if we are taking Kazakhstan as an example, Kazakhstan was announcing and was leading for the first 30 years of its sovereignty a policy of multilateralism, which is now transformed during the Tokayev presidency to a pragmatic multilateralism. And also Central Asian would like to announce nowadays that from the landlockedness of our countries, we are shifting to a land-linkedness. And of course, this Jeddah summit is one of the examples. And this is a summit where the 5 presidents of the Central Asian states were presented and met, and some good numbers are achieved. Let me just name them for the shortest of time. In 2022, UAE invested 420 million in various projects in Kazakhstan. And of course, this number is much less than Iran is investing for the decades yearly. But this number has a potential of growth. During the visit to Saudi Arabia in 2022, Shavkat Mirziyoyev signed investment contracts worth 12.5 billion, a large part of which involves green energy projects and the modernization of energy infrastructure. With these projects nearing their implementation, and the state plans to expand their cooperation with Central Asia, which is good. Well, and today Arab states are only a handful of international actors attempting to support the Central Asian states, but it is growing year by year. And let us not forget that starting from 2022, a very new format was born in Central Asia. We never used to talk about a format of 5+1, where 5 are 5 Central Asian, and 1 is every country would like to deal with us pragmatically. You would like to come do a business with us. We are not opting for ideology. We would like to do business. So 5+1 is 5+1 Russia. 5+1 is equally 5+ China. 5+1 is 5+ the United States, or 5+ Turkey. So this is in brief. I guess we can come back to this.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that, Akbota. I want to turn now to Mohammed. If you could give us, Mohammed, I was wondering if you could maybe say a few words about what you picked up from the July summit in Jeddah, I think it was, between the Gulf countries and the Central Asian leaders. If you could say a few words about that. But I mean, to Akbota's point about what Central Asian states are doing is not against anybody. It's not against China, it's not against Russia, it's not against the United States. It's for everybody to get involved. And I wondered if you could say about what Gulf is attracted to when they look at Central Asia and the South Caucasus.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alex, and thanks for MEI for having me today in this event with the colleagues from the region and beyond. Of course, I would like to talk about 3 main points. One is the summit itself, the outcome, the conclusion of the summit. Second is the presence of the superpowers or big powers in the region, in Central Asian region, and then how the Gulf countries' presence or investments fits in that. So just to connect these 3 points together. First, there is a growing focus from Gulf countries, especially Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, in Central Asia states. And these 5 countries, they have lots of resources. They have lots of potential, possibilities and opportunities for investments. And of course, they are in a way similar as a bloc, is similar in a way or other to the Gulf countries, the 6 Gulf countries. Although the geographic location is a bit far, but we can call it maybe the Greater Middle East. You can call it GCC plus CA of Central Asian countries. Of course, the Gulf countries are looking for opportunities, and this is why the Gulf countries rediscovered, I would say, the importance of and it was so late, in my opinion, also the importance of Central Asian countries. And there are lots of investments in those countries, like in Uzbekistan, for instance, where I traveled last 2 years, 3 times, and we had very good relation with the think tanks and universities there, also to Tajikistan. We have so far invested more than $22 billion. First was started maybe for 2-3 billions, and then it grew very dramatically within, and Aqua Power is a leading company in that, which is BF Saudi, funding, body. This is one. The other thing is the looking for some needs that Gulf country needs. For example, the food security is an element in that. Flexibility of supply chain is important. The communication and transportations. Therefore, for example, when you look at the project, the railway project from Pakistan, Karachi, to Afghanistan, to Termiz in Uzbekistan, all the way to Kazakhstan, other countries. And the Gulf countries are now looking for investing in this project alongside with other countries plus China. So this is why the focus. And of course, I think we will see more of that in the near future. Food security is very important. So Gulf countries import lots of their food needs from very far away states, from New Zealand, Australia, and other countries. So maybe this is good for food security, not buying, but also investing in the agriculture in these countries, taking consideration the water capacities and they have. This is one issue. The other thing is where we can, I think Gulf countries looking for is the skilled human resources, and this is coming with investment. So, for example, lots of laborers are working in Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries, and they are looking for skilled, laborers. And I think with training, with invest both ways, actually, whether importing products from Central Asian countries or exporting products, although they have similar economies in a way or other, depending on oil or gas or something like that. But in general, there are lots of opportunity for investments in both ways. So this is the first part. And now we'll talking about the competition in Central Asia. Great power, superpower, medium power presence in those countries. We can talk about 3 or 4 main countries, one of which, of course, is Russia, which is the most prominent player in the region due to the geographical proximity and the history. And of course, they have, what they call a collective security treaty organization between at least Russia and 3 main countries, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. So, and therefore, it is in a way kind of mini NATO led by Russia. So this is very important, and therefore, Russia is focusing in this region, and with the challenges or opportunities, although we have the difficulties in the relations here and there. The second player is China, which achieved significance and major business success in Central Asian countries by strengthening its bilateral trade and investment relation with the countries in the region. Of course, China is among the top 5 trading partners for each of these countries. And of course, we shouldn't forget about the geopolitical ambitions in the region, whether talk about United States or talk about Russia, and of course, Gulf state now. Also China is expanding its influence, and I'm looking at the words as well. Expanding its influence in that region, which is another alarming, I would say, alarming signal to both to Russia and to United States. I will talk about United States as well. So therefore, the presence of China is growing there, and they have lots of opportunity. The Silk Road Initiative is Central Asia is part of it, and a very important part of that. we can talk about, of course, the United States. The presence in the United States is challenged by Russian and Chinese presence in Central Asian countries, and of course to reduce the military, of course, cooperation between the United States and Central Asian countries. But of course, this is where this big competition between these three main players, Russia, China, and the United States. Although the United States is a less presence, but they have good relations, growing relations, especially with Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan, they have very strong relation with Tajikistan. It's growing relation, and of course, I think with more time, we'll see more American presence there. So the final point here is the ramification of GCC Central Asian relations on the presence of these three countries. So when you talk about China presence, is something not really welcomed by Russia in particular. And therefore, Russia now is focusing on the Ukraine issue and other issues. So the presence of Gulf states in this region seen by Russia is another, taking at least part of this Chinese presence. So a kind of, another player who would be a good friend of Russia and China and the United States, but also not leaving the scene, free and open to Russians, to Chinese. For of course, Russia is his strong presence, as you mentioned, in Central Asia is very important, and the historical increase of GCC involvement could challenge the Russian influence in the region, yet it could also provide Russia with counterbalance to Chinese influence. So this is, again, it's very important for Chinese and Russian. For China also, the presence of Gulf state is important, although it will China want to control everything in terms of investments and using the natural resources in these countries. But also it's a good chance for China to strengthen the relation with Gulf countries, and especially when we talk about the railway from Karachi to Peshawar, and then they are trying to build the part in Afghanistan or through Afghanistan about 500 miles, and then linked it to Termiz, Uzbekistan, and then we have the other projects. So looking for the investments about $5 billion, they are looking for shares to be considered by the Gulf states, especially Saudi Arabia. And I think Saudi Arabia is now studying that. United States, as I said, it's a good friend of Gulf states, and the presence of Gulf states in Central Asian country is another eye, I would say, for United States, and of course, taking consideration the importance of the relation between the two countries. So I don't think the United States is worried about the presence of Gulf states in that part of the world, but actually it's exactly the opposite. They are encouraging that. Gulf states want to be friend of everybody, want to build a relation with every country. It's not playing the role of any other state, but looking for its own national interest. And there is the overlap coming between these main players. So therefore, I know its time is limited here. So I want to conclude by the new way of thinking Gulf state is very important to be taken in consideration. The building a relation with every blocks or every region, geographic, bodies of countries like BRICS, like Central Asian countries, like Caucasus countries, like Africans coming. ASEAN summit is in mid of October between GCC and ASEAN. So they want to expand their, presence, expand economically speaking, their partnerships with different players, and try to diversify their relations with every state and every continent, I would say. So this is what I could say right now, and if there is a room for a question and answer later, I will be more than happy to take it.
Thank you, Mohammed. That was very comprehensive. You raised a lot of interesting points. We'll come back to a number of them, I'm sure. Let me turn to Fariz. Fariz, the sort of 5 Central Asian leaders going to the Gulf Summit is not possible for the 3 South Caucasian countries for obvious reasons that we know. But if you just focus on Azerbaijan, what, if any, lessons did Baku take from the fact that the Central Asian states are now moving towards closer economic ties with the Gulf states? And it has to be said, Azerbaijan itself has been very successful, relatively speaking, recently at least, in cultivating economic ties. But what do you think the longer term plans are for Baku? Is Azerbaijan looking to the Gulf as a potential strategic partner, particularly with the billions and billions Gulf funding that might be available for attractive economic projects that could take place in Azerbaijan?
Thank you, Alex, for invitation. Actually, the city of Baku is full of excitement and the news about the 2 large contracts that we have recently signed with Aqua Power Company and the Masdar Company to develop solar and wind energy in Azerbaijan. And as a result of that, of course, we will be exporting green energy, renewable energy to European countries via Black Sea. So we already see some tangible results of increasing bilateral cooperation. And of course, together with these Masdar and Aqua Power contracts, we will see a lot of human development, renewable energy expert development. This will have a spillover effect on other industries like IT, high technologies, etc., etc. Before this meeting, I was looking at some statistics. For example, Azerbaijani exports to Kuwait in the last 5 years have increased 5 times. Azerbaijani export to Bahrain has increased 10 times just in 2022. Azerbaijani export to Saudi Arabia has increased 10 times, now reaching 12 million per year. Just some statistics, and the same trend in United Arab Emirates increased by 5 times. These are impressive numbers. I mean, just in 2022, you see 5-time, 10-time increase of exports, and there's a diversity of products, starting from aluminium, going to plastics and some other stuff, minerals. The larger point is that, yes, Azerbaijan is looking for Middle East as a strategic partner. It is a source of valuable investments. It's a source of tourism. It's a source of economic drive. Azerbaijan traditionally looked for Europe and Euro-Atlantic space, but now there's a broader understanding that there are much more valuable partners in our own neighborhood, which is the Gulf region. And even with Central Asia, Azerbaijan is intensifying dialogue. So now, President is traveling to Central Asia a lot. There has been 6 presidential visits last year to try to deepen the transport corridors, the energy cooperation. So all of this is creating a bigger picture that, the world is not any more Euro-Atlantic centric, that we are not only looking towards the West. And I think this attitude is the same in Middle East, that they are not only looking for Euro-Atlantic strategic partnership, but they're looking for Central Asia, for generally Asia, East Asia, for partnerships. And this, I think, trend will bring mutually beneficial results.
Thank you very much, Fariz. Last but not least, Tengiz, we turn to you. Georgia, and you have to correct me if I'm wrong, has since independence focused much more so than, say, Azerbaijan, and you could argue in integration with the European, but the political, economic infrastructure that exists from NATO to European Union, so on. So given that background and context, and given that I'm sure Georgia would also want to be a recipient of some foreign investment from countries in the Gulf and so on, but what is the thinking in Georgia? Is this something that is, to your knowledge, an issue that is being followed closely?
Thank you, Alex. first of all, for this great opportunity to discuss regional cooperation, and my cordial greetings to our colleagues. Yes, you are absolutely right. Georgia's, I would say, strategic choice, existential choice is European and Euro-Atlantic integration. But at the same time, I would say this is just an advantage in cooperation with other countries, because aspiring EU integration, and you know that Georgia is a country awaiting decision about candidacy, that just gives Georgia a competitive advantage in cooperation. We are not rich with fossil resources. So advantage of Georgia is its westernization, modern services, geographic location, reforms, and democratic development. So, and we try to capitalize that. And of course, but that doesn't mean that we are looking for partners only on the West. Definitely not, because as I said, European and Euro-Atlantic aspiration makes us interesting partner to our Eastern partners, because all the benefit Georgia has from its Western integration, for instance, be it free trade, that's also benefit to our partners. And at the same time, Georgia as an eastern gateway of Europe is interesting for European countries in cooperation with regional countries. So that's why Georgia tried to capitalize, serving as a bridge between East and West. And in that regard, there are two very important dimensions. So first of all, what my friend and colleague Faris already mentioned, this is middle corridor. And middle corridor, which was, I would say, not neglected, but somehow forgotten before the war in Ukraine. But today we see the growing demand. And I would say that cooperation of Azerbaijan and Georgia and Kazakhstan in that regard, it's extremely important. You know that Georgia and Azerbaijan are founder fathers of Trasika project. And today activity of Kazakhstan really makes this corridor very important, but there are a lot of issues we have to solve, and cooperation. And if you see the dynamic of visit and high-level meeting with between the leaders of our countries, we try to take significant steps to address existing challenges, because today demands are much higher than capacity of this middle corridor, and we have to develop physical infrastructure, digital infrastructure, connectivity, harmonization, sharing of information, and so on, so on, so on. When it comes to the Gulf countries, this cooperation, contemporary world is pretty much interconnected. And looking for such development in Georgia, of course, that development make Georgia interesting place for investment for Gulf countries as well. And our bilateral relationship with Gulf countries also has quite positive dynamic. So starting from tourism, I would say that, by the way, Georgia has visa-free regime with all those countries, and they can enter on territory of Georgia without visa. And if you look at the statistic, we have, when it comes to direct flights from Saudi Arabia or United Arab Emirates, so we have daily based flights, and not only between the capitals. So that's a tourism, that's an infrastructural project, that's an energy, and so on, so on. So all together makes this economic cooperation dynamic extremely important. And last but not least, cooperation with Gulf countries has also very important political part for Georgia. This is non-recognition policy. You know that 20% of our territories are occupied by Russia. And cooperation with the, let's say, wider regional countries help us to maintain robust non-recognition policy, and that's why Georgia is looking for the observer status in Gulf Cooperation, in Arab Cooperation League, and developing such kind of ties. So altogether, make our countries partners, or when it comes, for instance, relation with Georgia and Azerbaijan, even strategic partner. And last but not least, as I mentioned, Georgia's Western aspiration, this is competitive advantage for cooperation with regional countries.
Great. Thank you very much, Tengiz. This, if we could start the second round, I think, it would be appropriate if everybody had a chance to comment on what they've heard so far. I thought that maybe you want to react, respond, comment on anything you've heard. But if you don't, let me ask you this question. Mohammed talks about the Gulf countries want to pursue a policy of having, good relations with any blocks of states, including Central Asia. That all sounds great. I'm sure that is a sincere desire, but I do wonder about how realistic that might be in the short term, given tensions right now that we see on a global scale between, say, the United States and China. So my question is, countries like Kazakhstan in Central Asia and the South Caucasus, how difficult do you think it will be to balance their economic interests and not wanting to sort of have to choose sides? For example, the Russian-funded or backed North-South corridor from Russia to Iran's Chabahar, that the Chinese might back at some point, who knows? That might be a direct challenge to US projects in the region that Gulf might want to support as well. So again, my question is, how do you think this balancing of geopolitical interest and wanting to sort of stay out of the fight among the big players, how do you think that will play itself out? And by the way, that could be a question for everyone if you're interested in to take that.
Well, as I am representing Kazakhstan, a country with a very, very particular foreign policy, and a very interesting format of foreign policy. Again, we say that we pragmatically are doing business with those who are willing to do business with us. Of course, there are instruments to avoid and to lift difficulties. So that, as an example, let me give you a very simple example of two ports. One is Chabahar, and those Russia-backed, India-sponsored in a way, and Iran's immediate interests. And the other port, which is situated not far away from Chabahar, is Gwadar port of Pakistan. Whether People's Republic of China, before 2017, already had decision to invest something little less than $80 billion into the port, its infrastructure, and the roads connecting the corridor. And Chabahar port, up till today, I was checking beginning of this year, that India up to today invested something, maybe our Indian colleagues will correct me, but what I found was 14.5 million of Indian investment into Chabahar and margin ports. Then they again decided this year that they will invest $80 million. Just compare it with investments to water ports. And of course, for us, this Rasht Astar railroad, if it will be able to carry our goods, will be good. Of course, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Kazakhstan, and I'm sure that all the Ministry of the other forced intelligence are discussing many questions, starting from veterinarian regulation, agricultural regulations, sanitary regulations. Like for us, if it would have been a possibility to import and export goods through Chabahar, it will be good. But for this, Iran and India have to take steps. Of course, sanctions, they do their limits. Some of the roads are closed now. Like we cannot still bring the goods from Iran directly through Central Asia due to the regulations. It is more useful to bring it through the Republic of Belarus and the road which is not secured for the known reasons. So we are open to deal with any country and with any like block of the countries would like to deal with us. But please do take steps. And now a very good news for the Central Asians that starting from Mirziyoyev presidency, Central Asian did have issues between them, which most of them are resolved till today. So this 5+1 format is a working format. That's it. But among all the Gulf countries, of course, Iran is our biggest partner, not the others.
Thank you very much. I guess the problem with Iran is they don't have an economic vision, whereas the Gulf countries do have an economic vision. I'm sure the Iranian officials would disagree.
Well, this kind of things are disputable. Just yesterday, I participated in the defense of PG defense in Iran, where they were disputing whether Kazakhstan's democracy is the failed democracy and are we a democratic country? Like, of course, Iran is a very democratic one. So, like, we should be accurate with this kind of things.
All right. Thank you, Akbara. Mohammed, let me ask, because this is kind of what Akbara said about, the Central Asian states are now much more cooperating with one another as a bloc, if you will, when it comes to their relations with their outside world. How is that working out in among the Gulf, the 6 members of the Gulf Cooperation Council? And specifically, the question I have for you is, do you think how will the rivalry between Saudi Arabia and UAE, and I'm sure you will question how intense this rivalry is, but the question is, there is a rivalry between Riyadh and Abu Dhabi in terms of regional leadership. How do you think that might affect the outreach to the Central Asian states by the Gulf countries as one bloc? Is there coordination, or perhaps there is rivalry we don't see?
Of course, the competition between Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates is the positive, I would say, the positive competition, not as many people try to present. Yes, we have some differences in opinion, but that's not more than 5% to 10%. But we are in harmony in many policy, including as a Gulf states, including in particular in terms of reaching out to many blocs and countries. Like, of course, as I said, we have Central Asian Summit. We have soon the ASEAN GCC Summit, and then we'll have the GCC summit with the African countries, and before that we had it with China, we had it with the Russians. So there is maybe the competition is how can you win more projects, but not to try to sideline one player or try to take the shares of the other. So they are as a bloc try to look for opportunities and to contribute to the weight of this bloc, the GCC weight in terms of geopolitics, in terms of economy, connectivity, and interconnectivity is the key in this regard. When you talk about the recent project was signed and the treaty was signed in India just a few days back to connect India to United Arab Emirates to Saudi Arabia all the way to Europe this is one of the joint projects between and among Gulf states that want to be part of it. I want also to actually comment on the taking side, because this question and this idea has been presented many times and over and again in terms of to be with us or against us. And I think we are much beyond this option. And I think it's not option for Gulf states to choose whether to be with the West or the East, or with China against United States, or the other way around. There is no doubt this is not an option for Gulf state. And they want to, and I think, of course, at the beginning, especially after the Russian-Ukraine crisis, this question was asked by Americans, in particular in European countries, are you with us or against us? Are you supporting Russia or taking side with Russia? Now they changed their position, but the policy here in the Gulf, we want to be a bridge between East and West. We cannot choose, and we shouldn't be forced to choose between whether with the United States and Europe one side or with China, Russia on the other side. We cannot. Our geographic location, our national interest, and our way of our new foreign policy approach is not to take a side. We want to be a friend of both sides. This is one. Another point I want to actually to mention, and I think it's very important here, is the Gulf policy toward Central Asian and Caucasus countries is very clear. We are looking for opportunities, investments, win-win situation. We have no hidden agendas. We have no ideological policy toward these countries. We want to look for opportunities for both sides. This is issue. Another issue is these countries as tourist destinations. I've been to Azerbaijan just 2 months ago, and then from there I went to Uzbekistan. But in Azerbaijan and Baku was the direct flight from Riyadh to Baku was full of Saudis. And almost every day there is a direct flight and it's full of Saudis. And Gulf people also looking for destinations. It's the same for Georgia as well. I've been to Georgia. I've seen many Saudi and Gulf people, tourists who try to find new destinations for summer holidays and other. Central Asian countries are a bit behind. And they have lots of opportunity. I've been to many of these countries, and soon I will visit Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. They have really, they are good destinations, but I think they need to work more on advertising and introducing the opportunities and of course the natural resources they have. Of course the Gulf countries are not looking for good hotels. People in Gulf states, they are not looking for big buildings or good hotels. They want to have new ways of life. They want to go different countries, different food, and they have all the opportunities actually to attract more Gulf people to visit these countries. And I think now there is no visa ban on, I mean, all Gulf states citizens can travel to all these countries without visa. Maybe with the exception of Turkmenistan, I'm not sure yet. But the other countries, freely you can go there and you need no visa. 2 years ago, I traveled to Uzbekistan. I had to get a visa. The same to Azerbaijan, I think, before a bit. But now you can just get your ticket and travel. And the thing within 2-3 years, these countries will be a very good destination for people who want to find new places to visit. And of course, they have all what Gulf people are looking for: good food, good cities, and countryside, and you name it. So I think the relation will grow very quickly in terms of trade, in terms of people-to-people relation, in terms of institutions, think tanks, universities. We have many people from those countries study in Saudi Arabia. I think we have some Saudis who study in Tajikistan in particular, but I think more we'll see, inshallah, in the future.
Thank you, Mohammed. Fariz, let me ask you a question that I asked before. By the way, respond to anything else you want. My question is just in case you want to answer it, but you have 3 large neighbors, Azerbaijan and Caucasus, I mean, in general, the South Caucasus. You got Russia, Iran, and Turkey. So how would you tell us in terms of how Baku goes about balancing? Oftentimes tensions exist in relations, particularly we've seen with Azerbaijan and Iran, but now that's improving again. But how does that How has that worked out since Azerbaijan became independent? What's the recipe for success, if there is success in balancing the large neighbors?
Yes, I wanted to add on tourism. In Baku, you walk in the streets and you see so many tourists from Arab countries. This is a new phenomenon, and Azerbaijan has liberalized visa regime as well. Not only they are coming as tourists, but they're also buying a lot of property. I have heard of some projects in hotel industry, in hospitality industry, especially in the regions of Azerbaijan where there's a good opportunities for hunting and for some other nature activities. So a lot of economic benefits for hospitality industry, for hotels, for restaurants, for transportation companies. And also, I want to make a point that our relationship with Arab countries helping us to somehow, let's say, counterbalance the sporadic pressure that we get from Iran. As you know, in the last 2 years, we have had tough relationship with Iran due to military exercises that Iran is doing on our borders and some other threats. Our embassy was attacked. So Azerbaijani president has attended Arab League Summit, and he announced that there will be intensified relationship with Arab countries, Arab world, let's say. And I think one of the reasons for that is not only economic issues, but also somehow to bring more, let's say, support to Azerbaijan vis-a-vis Iran, and somehow to counterbalance these kind of pressures that we face from Iran. Overall, Azerbaijan is definitely interested in balanced foreign policy. As Akbota said regarding Kazakhstan, we try to maintain cordial, pragmatic, and mutually beneficial relationship with European Union, with Russia, with China, with our immediate neighborhood. So this is the core of Azerbaijani foreign policy.
Thank you, Fariz. Cengiz, you get this question, and then we have a last round. Again, respond to anything you like, Cengiz, but I wondered if you maybe could elaborate a bit more in terms of how Georgia can position itself and message the United States, message the European countries, not to forget what Georgia can bring to the table as a conduit to the broader Caspian region, Central Asia, South Caucasus, perhaps the rest of the Middle East. What can Georgia practically do? How do you see that? Are we talking about transportation projects? Are we talking about building up the port of Poti and the Black Sea? And what do you think would work to get US's attention, to get Europe's attention when it comes to that role Georgia could play?
Thank you, Alex. I think this is really $1 million question, especially the part about US and US policy. Since regaining independence, since 1991, Georgia tries and already has established credentials as a country which is open for cooperation. And you see, everything I mentioned and all my colleagues mentioned speaks that our diversity is just complement to each other. So we can cooperate and we can develop and we can be in win-win games. So that's why Georgia is pretty much open for cooperation. The only problem, we have with our northern neighbor, which looks at the world from pretty aggressive perspective, but that's a completely different discussion. Otherwise, what we try to deliver message that interregional cooperation, when we're talking about cooperation between the regions, between the East and West, Europe and Asia, it's impossible without vision. And vision what Georgia tried to develop is that we have to understand that Black Sea is the sea of European cooperation. We can't afford to have new divided lines. We have to develop connectivity. And that's why what we need, you already mentioned activity of China, activity of regional countries. Yes, because today everyone wants to develop cooperation. Today, we are witnessing unique opportunities because the wider region, which unfortunately had been considered as a backyard of Russia, now we see that Russia is losing its position. And it gives opportunity for cooperation. And everyone tries to take advantage. And we see how China is active and how other countries are active. EU tried to develop a vision towards the Black Sea, and by the way, this new strategy towards Central Asia countries, it's extremely important. And my question is, where is US? Where is US leadership? So this is the main question, because such kind of interregional project always requires support from our strategic partners. And just let me recall 20 years ago when we had extremely important negotiations about pipelines. US leadership was quite robust and it was extremely decisive. And we still need such kind of vision towards the Black Sea, towards South Caucasus, and towards this wider European region. Once again, connectivity is good, especially when it considered as a win-win game. And we, regional countries, already proved that despite of our different political orientation, despite of our different economic development, we can cooperate, and this cooperation, it's based on mutual benefit. So that's why such kind of development needs more investment, more encouragement, and more security. And in that, US leadership is extremely important.
Great. Thank you, Tengiz. Well, we have about sort of 8 minutes before we wrap up. So I guess we have one more round. Again, please feel free to go whichever direction you think it's important to lay out the points that you want to make in your final remarks. Again, as a suggestion, perhaps you could comment on where you think this trend going. This trend certainly seemed to have accelerated by the war in Ukraine. In the post-Soviet states, the countries of Central Asia, South Caucasus have been around independent for 30 years plus. But we've certainly seen in the last 2 years a new momentum. Is it because of what's going on in the Ukraine war and the Russian-American tensions? Whatever it is, where do you think this is going? Again, sitting here in Washington, it would be very useful to us if you could suggest how American policy towards the region could perhaps become more proactive. Like Tengiz pointed out, to the pipelines that were built, the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline without US support. I don't know if that would have been feasible at the time in the 1990s, but comment specifically, perhaps if you can, on how the United States can play a constructive role here without necessarily being against anybody as the region tries to build up its economic standing. So Akboda, you get to go first, and then we do the last round.
Okay, just very fast. This year, Tokayev announced that the direct investments to Central Asia rose up to 40% compared to last year. And 60% of those investments came to Kazakhstan. This is direct answer to the current situation in the world. Yeah, and to the question, like if one door is closing, the others are opening, and we are finding those doors. The other question, which was actually, I guess, Tengiz answered it partially when he said that, where is the United States? United States sovereignty was trying to open for itself how to study us, how to consider us. Are we the countries of stance, and we are studied together with South Asia and probably together with West Asia? Or are we to be studied separately? And good saying that it was taken decision that Central Asia are the 5 countries, and 5-star countries are to be studied carefully, and each of us has to get a separate approach, because despite all the similarity, there are differences. And this is actually happening. We cannot blame only the United States for this kind of approach. Like, not everyone even know what those stunts are. But China, our immediate neighbor, does not consider it a very important economic and strategic partner. So it is a question. Can we really be a strategic partner? This is for you to answer for like each and every political approach. But our approach is clear. We're doing a pragmatic business. We are open.
Thank you very much, Akbota. Mohammed, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. First, I think the Gulf states are trying to diversify their own partnerships. And this is a very clear trend in the Gulf and among Gulf states. And Central Asia and Caucasus countries are part of that. Africa is part of that. India, Pakistan, of course, on top of that, United States, Europe, and China and Russia. Gulf states, I think the reforms they are making in their countries are built and departing from not only social and political reforms, but also economic reforms. They try to get rid of what they call it the oil addictions or addiction on oil. So they want to have other sources, relying less on oil. Therefore, they try to find opportunities for investments and trade. This is one. The other thing, they want to present themselves as a bloc in the middle of two big blocks, East and West, and to be part to seize opportunities in terms of their maneuver in the geopolitical level and in the economic level. And I think so far they are successful in that. Central Asian countries were unfortunately underestimated as a economic opportunity and investment opportunity from Gulf states. So, for example, they opened their embassies 30 years ago. Prince Saud Al Faisal, late Prince Saud Al Faisal, visited all the capital cities of these countries and opened the embassy. But that's it. For 30 years, we didn't go back until the current Minister of Foreign Affairs started his trips to these countries, and along with that, the big companies followed. So I think this relation came to stay and to grow. I will grow very fast, in my opinion. We'll see more cooperations between Gulf states from one side and Central Asia countries from the other side, and of course Azerbaijan, Turkey. I call it usually 5+1. And that's why I'm working on a project in this regard in our think tank. So we call it 5 Central Asian countries plus Azerbaijan. But of course, we could plus and plus to Georgia. You know, the difficulties in this region in terms of like Azerbaijan-Armenia relations, it's very difficult to maneuver in this regard. So, but I think also Gulf state, this is very important. The Gulf state may play a role in terms of resolving as mediator, and especially in the issue between Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. And to just bring these countries together more in harmony. So I think Gulf states want to play an important role. They went looking for strategic partnerships. And I think the other side is ready for that. And therefore, I see it in 5 years or 3 years from now, you will see different relation in terms of the trade, the volume of trade, visiting, the exchange in terms of culture, education, and you name it. So it's a growing relation, but it has really limitless opportunities. Thank you very much.
Very uplifting. Fariz, please.
I think that Azerbaijanis and generally, sort of our friends in Central Asia have been quite impressed with the pace of development in some of the Middle East countries. The transformation of Qatar and Emirates and Saudi Arabia is really impressive, really appealing. So I think that we will continue pursuing active cooperation with these countries, attracting investments, asking for more economic investments, economic projects, bilateral trade should increase. But also, some of the modern, let's say, high-tech developments in the region is also very attractive for us. Not just only, traditional areas like, let's say, tourism or production, but also some high-tech areas. I mean, some of the Gulf countries are very impressive in terms of their e-governance, in terms of usage of modern technology, renewable energies, desalination technologies, things related to artificial intelligence, big data. So these kind of modern eco-friendly cities, modern transportation systems, all of these things will be very attractive for Azerbaijan as we also try to modernize our governance system.
Thank you, Fariz. And Tengiz, you get the last word.
Thank you. I try to be short as possible, and I would say that when I'm talking about U.S. leadership, I'm talking about, from Georgian perspective, I'm talking about vision and visionary approach and strategic approach towards Georgia and towards the Black Sea. It's, by the way, it's very important that U.S. Senate now is working on Black Sea Security Act. And this is extremely important to finally develop the vision and develop the strategy. Now, the second, show not only statements, but action. Action. And when we are talking about, security is the ground for all kinds of development. Security brings stability, brings prosperity, brings investment, and so on and so on. The main thing today Georgia needs and Black Sea region needs are security guarantees. And nobody except the United States and NATO can give such kind of security guarantees. So that's why everyone today is looking for the bold action and leadership of the United States. When we're talking about the Black Sea security, that means the Black Sea security at all, not just NATO member states. And if you want to ensure East-West cooperation, you have to ensure security of Georgia, security of Ukraine, and security of countries sacrificing for European development and European welfare. And by the way, Georgia is the country which was the #1 per capita contributor in the Afghanistan. So it shouldn't be neglected, then the mission is over. Thank you.
Thank you, Tengiz. I think you just opened up a whole new chapter. We're going to go on another hour on that issue. But Tengiz, thank you so much. Look, as somebody who first started traveling to the South Caucasus and Central Asia in the late 1990s, I remember that part of the world look at the Middle East and really didn't know much about the Middle East. If anything, they kind of feared the Middle East. So one point Mohammed made at the time, there was the ideological issue. What will the Middle Easterners bring? 30 years later, that fear has been replaced by an excitement about, as Fariz was saying, the diversifying economies of the Gulf, the opportunities. How do we lift the boat for everybody? And some issues, frankly, would make it impossible to ignore regional cooperations. Things such as climate change. How do you deal with climate change on your own? You need the collaborative effort. So as these countries start looking for ways to cooperate, I think that should be welcomed globally by countries like the United States, the Europeans, and others. So I want to thank our 4 speakers for giving us so much to think about. I certainly learned a lot. Thank you very much from Astana, Baku, Riyadh, and Tbilisi. You know it's laid your way. You took the time to join us. Thank you so much. Thanks for everybody who came in to watch us. And with that, I say thank you very much.